People podcast. I'm Kyle West. Adam Carlson is out there someplace. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great.
So today we said that we were going to talk about tight ends and the offensive line. I know, it's a lot of guys to clump in at once, but we figure we'll take care of this and then move on to the defensive side of the ball next week.
hmm So we're gonna finish up, like Adam said, with the offensive guys, and we're gonna go with Kyle Rudolph, our resident Pro Bowl MVP tight end.
That's a good guy to open with.
Oh, of course.
So what can you say about him? I mean, his stats are just awesome for a tight end. He only had 500 yards receiving, but in an offense that Minnesota has, that's something.
Oh yeah.
Now, what you got to do is you've got to break it down. How many tight ends, or not tight ends, but how many touchdowns do you think the Vikings had as a receiving unit that's including wide receivers and tight ends?
Total.
Yep.
Um, I
Well,
I couldn't even
I'll
venture a
spoil it
guess,
for
but
you.
I bet you know. I bet you've got that info in front of you, Adam.
The answer is 18. And do you know how many of those Kyle Rudolph had?
He had 12 of those, and I know that because I got that information right in front of me.
12. I have 9.
Oh, no, wait, excuse me. 12 is his career total. 9 of them was his for the 2012 season.
So he had half of the
Yeah.
Vikings receiving touchdowns this year. And we're talking about this season how we have to keep Percy Harvin, who had 3 touchdowns, and how we're debating on whether or not to keep Michael Jenkins, who had 2. Kyle Rudolph is the man for the Vikings. Peterson moves the ball in the middle of the field. Kyle Rudolph catches the touchdowns in the end zone.
Yeah, I like his nickname, the Red Zone Reindeer.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Because he is just a great target to go in the red zone because he's got such a big catching radius, and you hear announcers and people talk about it all the time that you can kind of throw passes to him that maybe you ought not to be throwing because he's got such big paws for hands. He's either going to catch the ball or he's going to bat the ball away and it's not going to be an interception. So those
Here's a Madden reference for the fans out there. Tight ends for quarterbacks are like pacifiers for babies.
That's for
If you
sure.
play Madden, you probably heard that 500 times if you've heard it once.
The one thing that I will say about Kyle Rudolph is that moving forward, the Vikings definitely, he's a big part of our offense, needs to become an even bigger part of the offense. I don't want to see games where he only has 1 or 2 catches for garbage yards and no touchdown. They need to consistently find a way to get him involved in the game plan.
The nice thing about Kyle Rudolph is that he averages almost 10 yards a catch.
hmm
So you know that if you get the ball in his hands, he's going to be trying to get as hard as he can to that first down marker.
Definitely. And let's look at the flip side on our tight ends. John Carlson, not to be confused with my co-host, Adam Carlson.
Much different, much different.
You
He
guys
makes a lot more
related,
money than
Adam?
I do. What's that?
I said, you guys related? Any relation between John and Adam Carlson?
We're only related through our love of the Vikings. But we saw John Carlson play. This season he had 8 catches for 43 yards. His longest catch was 14 yards. He was the big off-season pickup for the Vikings this year. Do I have to ask you for your impression, Kyle?
Well, my impression is going to be the same as any Vikings fan. When you see a player who comes in with that big a contract, you're going to expect a lot more production than what you got from Carlson this season. I think the reasons are twofold that we didn't see what we would thought we were going to see from him. He got injured, okay, and he missed a good bulk of training camp, and I believe he missed. Did he miss all of preseason, Adam?
I'm not sure, but I know he missed at least a majority of it.
He missed a majority, if not all, of the preseason as well. So he fell behind, in learning the game plans and learning repertoire with, Ponder out there on the field, which that definitely counts for something. And I think even when he came back, I don't think he was 100% up to speed. Okay, so you had that that kind of kept him behind a little bit. And then you had an emergence of some of the other players on the offense, and I'm talking about Jerome Felton out there, to where they were
Yep.
able to go away from using the two tight end set.
Right.
So you'll see him come back. Uh, well, he's in 2013 for us, and I think I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and say if he has a full off season, that he can stay healthy and work through training camp and work through preseason. I think you'll see a pretty big improvement from what he was able to do last year for the team.
Well, I think he's a better blocker than people give him credit for,
Hmm.
but he's still not as good of a blocker as Jerome Felton, which explains to a lot of reasons why Jerome Felton was put in instead of John Carlson.
Yeah.
But we should see more big sets, hopefully with Kyle Rudolph, John Carlson, and Felton next season. I'm hoping.
Hmm. And real quick, my final thought on him is that I credit this organization a little bit, to where even though they spent a lot of money on him, Jerome Felton, like you said, well, he's a better blocker. Okay, so that outweighs the contract we gave to John Carlson. We're going to put Felton out there because he's the best guy for the team to win, when we need those blocks out there.
Right.
Not going to force Carlson because, hey, we paid him a lot of money, so we're going to throw him out there regardless. So I like the fact that the team was actually able to not utilize him, even though they gave him that big of a contract, if that makes sense.
It does. It's a smart move to play the guy that gives you the best chance to win.
Yeah.
And a semi-injured John Carlson who isn't really on page with everything that's going on, isn't part of the two tight end set like it was planned out to be. I understand why they went in that direction, and it was a good decision.
Hmm.
Speaking of guys that were a good decision, we're going to talk about Red Ellison now.
Oh, I love Red Ellison, don't you?
Oh, who doesn't? He was only one catch behind John Carlson this year, but he ended up having 65 yards, which is 22 more than Carlson had.
And he's got a
His
much
average was
nicer.
actually almost double Carlson's, too.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw Red Ellison used in a lot of blocking schemes and as decoy and part of trap passes that allowed Kyle Rudolph to get open in the red zone.
Hmm. I like what Rhett brings to this team. He's a young player who's only going to get better, and great. He's a good draft pick for the Vikings. And if there's anyone out there, that will be coming into this team to wear number 40, that was Jim Kleinsasser's old number. I'm glad that Rhett Ellison can pick that up, because he brings a lot of the characteristics that we've seen from Kleinsasser. That's what he can bring to the table.
Oh, definitely. And I was so glad when he was drafted. I had him down on my chart as a guy that the Vikings had to target, and I gotta admit I was ecstatic when he was picked,
Hmm.
and I'm still ecstatic now. So he did something right. So do we have any other tight ends to talk about?
Well, let's see here. Who was I'm drawing a blank. Alan Reisner, no longer on the team,
That's
but
correct.
it just I just wanted to mention Alan and say that he's not with the Vikings anymore, but you gotta wish him the best of luck, just based on how many times he was brought up and cut and then put on the practice squad. And my lord, I hope he just ends up on a team where he can just finally play.
Well, he ended up in Jacksonville, didn't he? So I don't know.
Yeah,
I
he's
wish him luck, and I really do think he was quite the trooper in Minnesota to go up and put up with all that stuff. But he's gonna have a uphill climb ahead of him.
maybe we'll see him and Percy on the field together in Jacksonville next
Maybe,
game. Right,
maybe.
Adam?
So I got a little trivia question.
Oh, you do, huh?
I do, I do. What stands 32 feet 4 inches tall and weighs 1,563 pounds?
Is it gonna be the Minnesota Vikings offensive line?
It is.
Yeah. I knew that off the top of my head.
Sure,
Or
sure.
Or based on the fact that that was our next segment, I just
Oh.
assumed.
So let's go into talking about the guy that changed everything around, in my opinion, Matt Khalil.
Yes,
Pro Bowl
Khalil.
left tackle, Matt Khalil.
So good that you didn't even have to talk about him throughout the regular season, which for an offensive lineman might be the best compliment you can give the guy.
Absolutely. Like I keep saying, if you're an offensive lineman, you know you're doing your job when you never hear your name.
Yeah.
It's one of those jobs where you're there, you're doing hard work, you're getting yourself dirty, you're getting hurt, you're getting bumps, you're getting bruises, and you're going to get no credit. But your credit goes when that running back gets in the end zone or that quarterback throws that pass. You know that you did that.
Mm-hmm. Now, about the only, there were a couple of times where you seen him make, he, I don't want to say got blown by, but maybe didn't make the best decisions in his
He made some
blocks.
mental mistakes and his footwork was a little off, but
Yeah,
he is a rookie.
that comes with being a rookie. Thank you. And he will just continue to be rock solid out there at left tackle for a long, long time for Minnesota. Safe to say that this guy was as advertised and is as good of a first round draft pick as you're going to get.
And let's remember that the Vikings management made the smart decision of trading down, getting extra draft picks, and they still got Khalil.
Oh my,
He was the man they wanted.
that my hat is literally off to Rick Spielman for pulling out that fantastic move where I don't know what he did or what he
Free
said.
draft picks.
Yeah, for drafting the guy that we were going to draft in the first place and only moving up one position. Like that to me is why you put one guy in charge of the draft and say, "Okay, Rick, go ahead and do what you do," because that was just outstanding.
So not only did we get Matt Khalil, we got him at a bit of a value.
Mhm.
He played at a Pro Bowl level. He he exceeded everyone's expectations.
Mhm.
He took over the position from Charlie Johnson the year before, and
Mhm.
I gotta say, maybe not anyone could look good in Charlie Johnson's place, but Matt Khalil sure made us forget about him real fast.
Yeah, and those extra draft picks that the Vikings got w- gave us the ammunition to move back into the first round and draft Harrison Smith.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I if Rick can pull off half of what he did last year in this year's draft, oh, we have lots to be excited for, Vikings fans.
Now, the only thing I didn't like about Rick Spielman's draft was that on day two, he made me wait so long to see another Vikings draft pick. That's the only thing I didn't like. I don't
Yeah,
like sitting there waiting, watching everyone else picking. Come on, I need something to get excited about.
yeah, I hear you, but hey, he brought us Blair Walsh too, so you can't knock him too much. Anyway, we got to get back to our offensive lineman here. Who's
Yeah.
who's next on our list, Adam?
Well, I'm not sure. His name is Troy Kropog. He's the backup left tackle for Matt Khalil.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you handle this one.
Now, here's the deal about Kropog. I don't know nothing about the guy. I really don't. But what I always assumed is that if Matt Khalil went down, they would pull Charlie Johnson out of left guard and have him play left tackle in his place.
Yeah,
I always assumed that, and I'm so glad that we didn't have to see what would happen.
I don't even want to talk about that. Don't you? I'm gonna give you the only rule I've ever given you on this show. Never again are we allowed to talk about Matt Khalil getting hurt.
But you don't like the options of Kropog or Johnson?
I do not like the idea of Troy Kellogg or going out there at left tackle. That will not be great, folks. Um,
No, nobody wants to see Matt Khalil go down, but if he does, we may see Kropog. We may. I doubt it, but we may.
okay, all joking aside here, let's get serious about Troy. He is going to be a guy who's going to be competing for a roster spot. I don't
Definitely.
know. I'm assuming he's got versatility. He'll probably, if I was to bet, he can probably play multiple positions on the line. He's a young player and he's a good body to bring in a training camp because hey,
Ab-
you never know what's going to happen with someone like Charlie Johnson. Will he stay? Will he go? Whatever. We'll talk about Charlie in just a second here. So it's good to have someone like Troy on the team who can help push and give depth.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I always say it's best to get a lot of young bodies in camp and have them compete. Troy is one of those guys, and I would like to see him succeed, and I'd like to see him move up through the depth chart and earn positions and play well, and that's what I want to see. That's what I
I
want to see.
I don't know if I want to see him move up through the depth chart, but
I do, especially if Charlie Johnson's the backup left tackle.
well, yeah, you're spot on
But
with.
let's move on to a position right now where there's absolutely nobody. The depth chart is empty, and that's right tackle.
Yeah, currently the Vikings don't have anyone under contract. That spot will be employed by Mr. Phil Loadholt, and
We hope.
I use the word Mr. with Phil Loadholt because he is so large. He's 6'8", 343 pounds. I do not want to get him mad at me. That is a big, big dude.
You know who Phil Loadholt kind of reminds me of?
Who?
If you watch wrestling, it's the world's strongest man, Mark Henry.
Mark Henry? Yeah, I can
Because
see
I think
that.
both these guys could just pound me into a pile of goo.
I would like to see Mark Henry, an offensive lineman. I bet his footwork would be really, really bad.
I bet so too.
I almost bet you, I would almost guarantee you, even though he's really strong, Jared Allen could probably push him over or blow right by him.
But let's get back to Phil.
Yes, let's get back to Mr. Phil Loadholt. He'll
Now, Phil
be
Loadholt got the ultimate compliment from running back Adrian Peterson, saying that he wants Phil Loadholt back, he wants his road grader back, and he wants him back in a big way.
hmm he'll get the contract. I mean, what other options really do the Vikings have? And he's proven that he is a solid player who can play above average at times. And he's like anyone else. There's stretches where it seems like Phil gets called for penalties that are ticky tack, I believe, quite
Right.
a bit. But you continue to want to see him to clean that up. But he'll definitely will get a contract extension with the Vikings.
Well, what it is Phil Loadholt is a really interesting guy because he started out his career as being known for being a great pass protector.
Hmm.
And over the years, you've seen him develop into this road grader of a right tackle that just loves to just push over defenders.
Hmm.
And those are the kind of guys you've got to lock down under contract. You've got to get those guys because if you got those bookends, if you got him and Khalil, and then you've got a solid guy in the center,
Which
you've got a really awesome setup.
yeah, and
And
I like you want to lock down your offensive line and pretty much have the same guys at their spots that you can depend on and you can count upon. And especially a team that's going to run the ball like what Minnesota's going to, you want to get guys that are talented. And a
right,
lot of people like to knock on Phil Loadholt for reasons that I think are unnecessary. Well, guys, you're not going to get anyone out there in free agency that's going to be better than Phil.
no,
We're quite lucky to have him on this team, I think.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Now, this is a bad year for right tackle to try to get a big payday, which means it's a good year for the Vikings to try to retain him. The bad part is if the Vikings lowball him too much, you're going to get an upset man, upset agent. Hopefully, they can sit down and work something out because they were trying to work out a contract throughout the season, but couldn't seem to agree on a number.
Hmm.
I'm assuming he's going to end up with maybe a 4.5 million a year contract, which for a right tackle is very reasonable, especially one that plays at his level.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Spielman's philosophy when it comes to pretty much the team in general is that you're going to draft young guys and you're going to pay your players that you have on your team and you're going to sprinkle in your unrestricted free agents kind of as needed. So just with that basis in mind, it makes sense to me that you lock up Phil Lodeholt to a long-term contract with the team because he's a player that the Vikings have developed and are going to continue to develop for a long time.
Definitely. Let's move inside to guard.
All right, that means we're moving to Charlie Johnson. I learned something.
Absolutely.
Yes, I learned something interesting about Charlie Johnson. About 20 minutes ago, if you'd asked me how old is Charlie Johnson, for whatever reason, I had it in my mind that he was 32, 33-year-old player. No, turns out he's 28. I had no idea. Did you know that, Adam?
I assumed he was older than that, but you learn something new every day, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 7 years experience in the NFL. He's 28.
He's versatile too. He can play tackle and guard, but
Hmm.
at what level? That's the thing.
Okay, before you go on Charlie Johnson, because I know what you're
Okay.
going to say, I'm going to say my little short spiel on him here. I want to see Charlie Johnson return to the team. And even if it's not necessarily maybe at a starting position, I think the versatility that he brings makes him a darn good backup rotational guy because he can come in and he can play multiple spots on that line. You can depend upon him. And I don't think that he's as bad as what some people say he is. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary flack. Now, you know more about the O line positions than what I do, so feel free to tell me that I'm a dumbass on that one. But I do like Charlie Johnson and want to see him come back to this team.
Well, let's look at the flip side of that coin now because I'm going to tear Charlie Johnson apart a little bit.
The floor is yours, sir.
All right. You ever go through pictures of Adrian Peterson, the pictures where he's dancing into the end zone, and you see the linemen, they're blocking, and then you spot Charlie Johnson in the background celebrating, not blocking? Well, that kind of bothers me. It really does. And then you look and see, you're talking about keeping him on maybe as a rotational backup,
Mhm.
but you can't do that for a guy who's got a cap number of 4.35 million. He can't be your backup. You've either got to start him at guard or you got to start him at tackle. I don't know what they're going to do with him because I'm assuming we're going to see the Vikings draft a guard or go into free agency and get a mid-level guard. And if that happens, Charlie Johnson had better be scared because that's a high cap number for a guy competing for a job.
Very true. I think you might be willing to restructure his contract, especially if they're going to say, "Hey, we want you on the team, but we want it in a reduced role." Uh, I could see him doing that because I don't know what he's going to command out on the open market if he would be able to get a bigger contract with another team. I don't know. I can't really say that.
Well, we know that as a trade bait, he probably wouldn't fetch very much.
Yeah, I
So
don't.
we'd be looking at cutting him, and I'm not sure how much of his contract is guaranteed. I can figure that out in a moment, though. But the other thing about Charlie Johnson is that I'm not really sure what he's supposed to excel at because he's not a really awesome run blocker. He seems to let guys through a lot in pass coverage,
Hmm.
and it just really kind of confuses me a bit.
His strong suit, in my opinion, is the ability to play multiple positions on the line better than well enough, if that makes sense. Like he's not just well enough
So what you're saying is
efficient.
that he's average at several positions.
Yeah, yeah, and that makes him a value in my eyes, for the team is his ability to he can step in and he can play left tackle. Now, he's not Matt Khalil, but he can step in, he can do it. You can get by with him at left tackle. He can play guard, okay? He might not be the best guard out there, but he can step in, he can do it. You can get Hey everyone, welcome back. And I know you're thinking, but wait, you didn't go anywhere, you're in the middle of a show. Well, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty that happened here with the connection. So we're back. We're going to finish up our thoughts on Charlie Johnson and we're going to continue moving on. So, well, what do you got for us here, Adam?
My final impression is that at the current salary, Charlie Johnson probably will not stay unless we see some kind of restructure or somehow dramatic improvement in his play. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and I said whatever I was talking about 30 minutes ago. I'll stick with that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to the next guy on our list. Who do we have here?
Brandon Fusco.
Fusco. I like saying his name. It's fun.
Well, you know what I didn't like was his play at right guard this year.
Yep, I agree with you. I think he will be a body that will be brought back to training camp. Probably will be replaced by someone else. That's just kind of my thought.
Now, I don't know if you are aware of the ranking system by Pro Football Focus, but what they do is they start at 0. Any positive number indicates that the player is above average at his position. A negative number, the opposite.
Yeah.
It means he's not as good. Now, Fusco graded out at negative 11.8.
Oh shit.
And that is not good. By far the worst on the Vikings starting offensive line. By far.
Yeah.
Now, I really like Fusco. I like that he's got that anger. I like his temperament. And I like him in run blocking, but his pass blocking is absolutely terrible.
Well, to me, he just strikes me as a guy. He's just a guy out there on the field that's filling a position for the team. And he's an area that I think they're definitely looking to improve coming into the season. And I think they'll probably do so in the draft. That's just kind of my gut on that guard position. But yeah, I think Brandon will, he'll be here to compete through training camp and preseason. And if he comes back, it's definitely going to be in a backup position.
Well, he's one of those guys, too, that can play guard or center.
Mm-hmm.
He allows that versatility.
And he's young, too. He's only 24. So, maybe they will want to stick with him and hope that they can reduce him and he can learn more and maybe grow back into a starting spot.
Yeah, I could see him returning in a lesser role to try to earn his spot back because he was very disappointing this year. I had high hopes and expectations for him.
Yeah, me too, but I wouldn't lose much sleep if they decided to move on from him.
Well, let's talk about the guy that he was competing with for that position coming into this season, and that's Jeff Schwartz.
Mm-hmm. He said something.
Now, the interesting thing about Jeff Schwartz is that he had a positive rating on Pro Football Focus, that he was actually almost a positive 1.
Nice.
Which means he's better than average at guard. And it confuses me why. Well, I understand with the running game going as well as it was, why they didn't make the change.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, you've got to notice, hey, this guy's really struggling. We've really got to make a change.
Well, I'm sure, the team, hey, they're the pros. They've got their reasons for sticking with certain players at certain positions. They see them not only in game, but all week long in practice and
right.
whatever. So it's tough to speculate exactly why they went with what they went with, but I'm going to give them, the benefit of the doubt. The thing with Jeff that I find interesting about him is that he made the comment over Twitter that he is really excited about this off season because it's one of the first off seasons that he's had in a while that, hey, he's 100% healthy and he's not recovering from anything. He hasn't had any surgery, nothing like that. So here's a guy that he's gonna be able to work through training camp and through preseason, and I think that he'll be a good asset to this team moving forward.
Well, I don't believe Schwartz is under contract currently. I believe he's hitting the street as a free agent.
I think they'll bring him back. I hope so.
Well, he provides that kind of versatility that you like. He can play right tackle or right guard. He said on Twitter that he prefers playing guard, and his numbers, according to Pro Football Focus, it confirms that, that is a better position for him. But it's nice that he has that kind of versatility.
Yeah, he's a big guy too. 6'6", 340 pounds. That's what ESPN's got him listed at. And if you guys haven't, you should look for him on Twitter. He's a really good guy to follow. He's a really nice guy too. He's just
Right.
one of those players that you wanna pull for and you just wanna see do good.
Yeah, he won my Twitter Nice Guy of the
Yeah,
Year, which I love that award show. I hope we do that again next season.
maybe we'll do some kind of like preseason award show like before the season starts or something. Well,
Looking at a crystal ball, we could do that. We can see.
yeah, we'll figure something out for that.
But we still got two guys we got to talk about. And before we get to the starting center, let's talk about his backup, Joe Berger.
Okay. What do you know about Joe? Anything fancy or fun?
Well, as you guys know from my conversations on here, he is my hometown boy. He played at Michigan Tech, which is about a half an hour from where I live.
Nice.
I get to walk past his Michigan Tech Hall of Fame board every time I go up there, and it's really cool to see a Viking up there. I just love it.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get to the meat of the matter. He's getting older. He's over 30. He hasn't progressed to the point to where the Vikings think that he can be a viable starter. As of now, he's just a backup guy. He can play guard and center, but I could see the Vikings moving on from him for a younger guy that is more specialized at playing guard or center, especially considering all the guys that can play center on this team.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we've got a really good center, excuse me, who doesn't really miss games. I gotta take a drink of water here.
Hey, water's good for you, from what I read.
It not only quenches your thirst better, it tastes better too. That was from the Water Boy.
Water sucks. Gator's
Yeah,
better.
Joe how do you say his last name?
Berger.
I always want to say Burger. Um, anyway, he's a guy I know absolutely nothing about, and he just kind of strikes me as one of those guys that's just on the team. I'm sure
Just another guy syndrome.
just another guy. We've got some guys on defense that are just another guy. That's a little lead-in to a show we'll be doing here in the future. But yeah, whatever happens with him happens. If he's back, he's back. If he's not, hey, no sleep lost over him.
No sweat off your
Yeah.
back, huh?
That's cool. He's from your hometown, though.
But he probably won't ever get to play because, like you said, John Sullivan.
Yeah, Sully.
Now, he was Pro Football Focus's best center 2 years in a row. This year, he rated out at plus 27.3, which is an extremely high ranking, the best for centers last year. You couldn't ask for anything better from him. He is currently their stud and leader on the offensive line.
Well, riddle me this, Adam. How does he not make it to the Pro Bowl, yet the backup center, Jeff Saturday, makes it to the Pro Bowl?
Do you want the nice answer or the political answer or the real answer?
I'll take both of them.
Okay, the political answer?
Mhm.
It's because fans vote, and
Name recognition.
although Sully's a nice guy and he plays hard, you don't get the kind of recognition in Minnesota that you would in a place like Green Bay or Dallas or New York, the bigger markets. Now, do you want the real answer?
Yep.
Because people are stupid. They don't know talent when they see it.
Well,
They see a name on a list and they click on it.
how many centers in the NFL can you really name? Not many people can name a whole hell of a lot of them. And Jeff Saturday is one of the few that I feel like most fans could name. That's why he got voted to the Pro Bowl. I like John Sullivan quite a bit.
I like Sully a lot.
Yeah, he's turned into a leader on this team, on and off the field. He does a lot of great work, charity work for the Vikings, which is fantastic. He's one of our Notre Dame alumni, so he's got that going for him too. He's excellent. The center is you can make a case for it being the most important position on the offensive line because he's right behind the quarterback and he's relaying, information. If Ponder's going to audible, Sullivan is helping relay that info out to the other guys on the line. So it's very important, the chemistry between him and Ponder, and they've got that down.
Well, here's the absolute easiest way to talk about how important he is. John Sullivan touches the football every offensive play.
Yeah.
Every
Yep.
play. How many offensive players can you say that about?
None. That's more than Peterson. That's more than Harvin. Yeah, you're right.
It was more than Ponder this year.
Yeah. Every single play, John Sullivan has the ball in his hand.
Yep. And he played at a very high level. They locked him into a big long-term deal, and he earned every penny of it this season, and he will continue to do so. He is the rock on this line.
Oh, for sure. And fans, when he initially got that big contract, I felt like there was a bit of resentment from fans going, well, why did John Sullivan get that big deal? What's he ever done? And I feel like if you really pay attention to this team and if you really understand what's going on the football field, you know why John Sullivan got that big deal. And he's a very intelligent player on top of everything else that we've said about him, too.
Well, the Vikings organization is very interesting because they reward players based on a lot of things. Their leadership role, their play on the field, their ability to mentor, a lot of things. And John Sullivan is one of those guys that just has all those qualities, wraps them up, shows his play on the field as being an excellent player, and he works hard to earn what he's earned.
Yeah.
He is the offensive version of Chad Greenway.
And Sully had some tough shoes to fill too. We had Matt Burke was our center for Minnesota for a long, long time. And hey, Matt Burke was a guy that I still to this day have the utmost respect for. And Sullivan was able to step in, and he's filling in that role. And that was a big role to fill in for Burke on this squad.
Absolutely. Well, that's all I have for offensive line. Do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about?
No, I don't, because I have no idea how long this show is at this point.
Well, let's take a minute and talk about next week, where we're going to break down the defensive line. We're going to talk about the defensive ends and defensive tackles. It'll be nice to move on to the defensive side of the ball after all this offense talk. So I'd like to take a minute and just thank everyone for listening, because I know that during the off season, these shows aren't as exciting as they are as the regular season. But thank you for listening, and I really do appreciate it.
Yep, and I just wanted to remind everyone to give us a follow on Facebook, or you can follow us on Twitter at Purple People Pod. And I was thinking the other day, we're getting enough people on our Twitter and our Facebook account that if you guys got any questions about the team or about, I don't know, us for whatever reason you'd want to know, just any interesting little things, send them to us and ask us, and maybe we can do a segment where we answer, fan questions that, you've sent to us over Twitter or whatever. So, yeah, so, keep that in mind. If you got anything, send it to us. We'll work it into the show. And, yeah, I think that's all I got for us. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
You can also hit us up on Gmail at Purple People Podcast. You can go to our YouTube page, which has links to all of our podcasts, which is youtube.com/Purple People Podcast. You can subscribe to us on there. And once again, thanks for listening. Stay classy, Minnesota.